for this session as we recap tracks 3, 4, and 5 of our Global Youth Dialogue. We've had some amazing conversations, and ladies, I'm sure you guys could attest and agree to that. These past days, or second day, has been quite impactful as well. Yesterday, we were honored to host a recap of the conversations of day one with Her Excellency Dr. Natalia Kanim, the Executive Director of the UNFPA, as well as his Honorable Minister Sherba and Ilada from We Need to Talk, our fantastic reporters for our tracks 1 and 2. If you missed the recap, please, I strongly encourage you to tune into our YouTube channel, the UNFPA YouTube channel, to find out more. And we discussed the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as education, just around achieving the ICPD agenda. I must say we learned quite a lot, and I'm feeling super energized about the conversations we had. Just a brief recap around the place that I work for, Global Citizen. We are the world's leading advocacy organization. We're all about the youth, and we're really just a worldwide community that is seeking to drive, activism work for young people like yourselves online. And we're on a mission to defend the planet, demand equity, and end extreme poverty. Follow us. We're on Twitter, Global Citizen Africa, as well as Instagram. Just in terms of our partnership with UNFPA, we've been in this partnership for quite some time, and we're really thrilled to be part of the process and joining in on the conversations and dialogues over the past 2 days. So I encourage all of you online to please take action and follow us on our Instagram page. Share your thoughts, comments. I promise you they will be taken into account, and I promise you that they will be dealt with. So please continue to follow the movement online. Now, without further ado, I'm really, really excited about the fact that I am surrounded by these fierce ladies and that we're about to have a really great conversation. And to my right, I have Aura Linda from Sister Song. She is a woman, Sister Song, which is a woman of color reproductive justice collective from Southern United States. And to my left, or to my far, far left, I've got Anne Berivik, former member of the Norwegian Parliament, leader of the Young Liberals Party in Norway. Thank you. And Simone Diouf, African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace. I want to say I'm really excited, and you guys are absolutely incredible. I've been in some of your plenary discussions, and it's been really, really impactful, so thank you. I'm very keen to hear your views on the discussions that took place today. And I'll start with you, Aura. You're representing Review Track 3, entitled Radical Inclusion, Protecting Human Rights and Advancing Gender Equality and Racial Justice. Easier said than done, right? But it's such an important idea, and it's such an important concept. Can you tell us, just in terms of in your own words, what your takeout or takeaway has been from that conversation?
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. In my own words, well, before I do that, I want to mention just my other co-panelists that were with me on the plenary. So we have Isha Ware, which is the director of the National Youth Council in the government of Guatemala. Prajal, which is they are a deaf youth activist from YP, Nepal. Myself, Betty Hebin, who is a young women's advocate from Plant International. Yassine Gerard, who is a Tunisian LGBTQI activist. And Sarah from the Stella Network in North Macedonia. So we led a panel on radical inclusion, and I really think the best part I think about my plenary was how fluid everybody's issues were, even though they were very different. We all spoke about different isms, so heterosexism, sexism, adultism, what else did the other ones? Racism, of course, ableism, and how these intersect on our work as young activists. We have some noise in the background. But yeah, it was really such a beautiful conversation, and we really got to dig deep on the unique challenges that each of us face. I spoke specifically about heterosexism, and in my experience as a queer person. And I really spoke mostly about the how much this space is for us to speak and hold other people accountable. That plenary was a very clear indication that we're all on the same page as youth activists in this global network. Even though we are very separated by land and sea, we all have very similar values and aspirations and strategies. And it's really just how governments are actualizing what we're saying. And I think we all recommended them to take accountability to do the things that we're asking of them, and I'm appreciative of the space that the global dialogue, the platform, has given everybody to speak. And I think the plenary itself was a great example of radical inclusion, from translations to the sign language interpreter, where it was a representative of living in the actual value of what it means to be radically inclusive. And like I said, it was Tunisia and Guatemala and North Macedonia and the U.S. Like, that is spanning a huge geographical area for sure. What else would I say was a really good recap? We talked also towards the end a lot about like the anti-rights movement, and which led to the next concurrent session as well. But the we're all facing very intersectional issues, and I think that was highlighted, of course, and I think we all use the word intersectionally very often, but like, even to deepen that, and even hearing some of the specific issues that, for example, like the deaf activists brought up, or from specific to Guatemala, or specific to the US, and what I brought up, it's interlayered oppression, and I think we have to have a layered reaction to that, and we can't have a one-size-fits-all discussion, nor a one-size-fits-all solution. Yeah, that's what was the recap of the session. Very, very beautiful. I'm grateful to be a part of it, and to have be a representative of the reproductive justice movement in the U.S., and as one of the representatives of the U.S. completely here in Benin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for that shout out to UNFPA for organizing just, the translators as well as the sign language guide. That's very, very mindful and inclusive. So thank you, Aura. And I'd like to ask you, you were in the review for track 4, right? Entitled Adapting, Thriving, and Inspiring, Crafting Resilient Futures in a World in Crisis. A heavy, heavy, heavy topic. And indeed, we are living in a world of crisis, right? What does a resilient future mean to you, and what were your takeaways? I'm also going to ask you. It's also your coming. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Apologies for that. Simone, yes. Park your takeaway.
Thank you so much. So, our track, like the plenary, was like very, very interesting. We learned a lot, and my takeaway was first, uh, all the panelists, like from Gambia, Assistant Secretary General, WPS Envoy, AU, like very diverse panel, we all agree that we live in a world of crisis. For example, Madame Diop from AU, she explained that we live in the world of three crises. The 3C crisis. The COVID, we're still facing. The conflict, in the climate. So it's the first takeaway. We all agree that our world is facing multi-dimensional crisis. The second takeaway is from the humanitarian side, because the plenary was about youth peace and security, humanitarian challenge youth are facing, but also migration. When it's come to the humanitarian response, one of the panelists, for example, shared that young people should not only be the beneficiaries of the humanitarian, they should have like a critical role, because they can be humanitarian responders. And in some contexts, they are. I'm working specifically, for example, in GRC with young women leaders. In the camps in Goma, young women leaders are the first responders of the humanitarian. They are seeing people coming from the lands from the provinces, and they are responding to their needs. And no one is recognizing their efforts. So it was an important highlight that we all have to keep in mind. And the third one is about migration. It is a big challenge, especially in my country, Senegal. Young people are dying in the sea, in the desert, because they want to leave the country. They are desperate. So one of the highlight was to provide socio-economic opportunities for them to stay in their country, be able to build their future in their country. So for me, it's the three main takeaway for my session about resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And over to you, Anne. You were in the track 5, just a correction there, entitled Rising Voices, the Power of 1.9 Billion. It's amazing, right? 1.9 billion people today between the ages of 10 to 24. That's amazing. Powerful cohort indeed. What do you think is the potential power of this group, and what were your key takeaways from that session?
Thank you so much. I think right now we are all kind of living in a moment that is a tipping point. We are facing large challenges that will undeniably have huge consequences for the generations that come after us and those who come after them again. Whether that is how we tackle our development, whether that is how we meet the climate crisis, how we take care of the nature around us, or just how we develop our cities will have such huge impacts on the livelihoods of future generations. And I think while 1.9 billion between 10 and 24, 25 obviously can have a huge impact, unfortunately, it is so that youth is often placed between two chairs and underrepresented and often not even at the table in which the decisions are made. This year, over half of the world's population are going to the ballots, or at least have voting rights. The US, the European Union, India, Portugal had its elections a couple of weeks ago, etc. So many countries are having democratic elections. Yet we know that even though youth compose roughly 25% of the world's population, only between 2 and 3% of the world's parliamentarians are youth. And I think although youth can achieve a lot through civil society, through grassroots movement, I think if we look at the youth generation today, it's obviously a very tech-savvy group of digital natives, and there's a lot that can be achieved through this. But then at the same time, for youth to be acknowledged for youth's important role in society, we also need real representation at the table in which the decisions are made, and we need youth to be represented in democratic in parliaments in which the democratic representation is to be set. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And I hope all the viewers online, if you're feeling like you want to get into politics and you're pondering on this, now's the time to act. So I hope you guys are tuning in and listening. Aura, I'm coming back to you. I just want to hear more about the intersection between racial justice and gender justice, about the pushback on both of these advancements. What are your views?
Okay, I think this may not answer the question, but the first thing that I thought of when you said the intersection between gender justice and racial justice, something I brought up in my plenary discussion, as well as, and also what you brought up in your section was reminded me a lot of the conversation around adultism and what it really looks like to have meaningful youth engagement. But the people who are queer, the young people who are queer, are often, or that's already a marginalized group, and then if you add on a queer person of color who's also young, that you just keep getting in. That's the definition of intersectionality, intersection of oppressive systems. And literally sitting before you as a non-binary person, I will never move through the world not being perceived as a black woman. And I think that's very beautiful. I work alongside and for black women in a lot of my work as a youth organizer, and that I am the living intersection of gender justice and racial justice. It cannot happen without the other, because queer people who are also young and also black and also persons of color exist. And if I'm just free of racism, I am not free of homophobia, um, and patriarchy. And patriarchy has done very much damage to how we even think of race and nationality. So that is what I'm thinking on the top of my head of the intersection. What was the next part of the question? Oh, the investments. Well, I mean, because we're all thinking an intersectional lens, and that's like inclusion is the focus, or we're trying to be inclusive in all of the discussions throughout this whole conference. I think the advancements is our radical inclusion, and making that not an afterthought, especially because of how many countries are represented. Like racial justice is in the forefront. Like when you think of just different representation of culture and nationality and citizenship. So yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like we have it down pat. Honestly, young people, like we're not leading with like that first. Like I feel like it's more like we're not. You don't need to come out in the first conversation, or that's not the biggest thing. If anything, I talk so much to so many young people here, and I get their name at the end of the conversation because we're so immersed in the issues that we're passionate about, whether that be like me, menstrual equity, or maybe it's climate justice, or maybe it's deaf advocacy, or whatever your niche is. We've definitely made huge advancements in gender justice, especially like in recent decades, for sure. I don't think there's ever been more gender inclusive time, except for obviously in our when we let indigenous people live freely, of course, because that was not a new thing. Colonialism brought prejudice amongst sexuality and gender into all of our respective countries, of course. But I forgot my thought. Yeah, as soon as I get to start talking about colonialism, I'm gonna go on a roll. Yeah, I think we've made a lot of beautiful advancements, but honestly, there's a long way to go, especially when it comes to the violence that queer people face, and like I said before, the violence that people of color and queer people face. So we're moving the needle, but the needle is moving back as fast as we're pushing it forward. But again, like I said in my plenary discussion, young people have the right idea. It's really just how much the adults want to take the baton that we're passing. Like, it's I think we're thinking like, oh yes, adults in power, pass the baton to youth. We're passing on ideas right back, and I'm grateful to be a part of the discussion and a part of, the discussion on how can we help advance policy, national policy, and how we can continue to build transnational solidarity with each other. But yeah, I think young people, we're very aligned, and we're very synergized on our values and who we're holding sacred and who we're protecting and who are our allies. It's really just how that is implemented in programs and implemented in policy and implemented in our respective countries.
Thank you, Aura. And I think what's really exciting to note is that, young people are starting out, and you're interacting with young people who are starting out with their issues because they're highlighting their passions. We've got over 130 countries in the space, and those online, we see you, we hear you, and just continue to leave your comments so that we can drive this conversation online too. Simone, I'd like for you to just really unpack for us what is the role of YP in the YPS agenda, and tell us define it for us in the layman's terms, man on the street,
Recording in
so that they
progress.
could understand what it entails. and how it fits into the ICPD.
Thank you so much. So YPS stands for Youth, Peace and Security, which is an agenda of 3 resolutions passed by the United Security Council. The first resolution was passed in 2015. It was the 2050 resolution. And the main objective of this resolution was to promote young people's role in peace processes. You know, as I said, in the world, millions of young people are living in conflict and post-conflict countries. And this resolution is for young people and by young people because hundreds of young people advocated to have it. So now what's remained is the implementation at national and local level. So this agenda is for young people and they are the ones that have to implement it, but sometimes they don't have the means. And the governments too have to be held accounted to implement it because they are member of the United Nations. So how can government can do it? They can, for example, develop national action plan on youth, peace and security. For now, we have 4 countries around the world that have developed national action plan. Finland, Nigeria, GRC, and the last one was Philippines. And how it fits in the ICPD agenda, as I said, like the youth, peace and security agenda is the agenda for young people on their, to promote like their meaningful participation in peace processes, mediation, and also to protect them within this, the conflict settings, and to also promote their participation as mediator agents for peace within the communities. So it's the agenda. So the ICPD agenda is the agenda for the population, and young people are the majority of the population. So I think that it is important that the youth, peace and security agenda, it is critical like within the ICPD framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And young people, you guys are agents of peace, so act, do not hesitate, just go on and act for peace. And you served as a parliamentarian, that's a long term, stepping up to serve our country and you've already, to your country, and you've already shaped and helped shape policy. But you're an outlier. Global data shows that less than 3%, in fact 2 to 3%, right, are, of young people are parliamentarians. What are some of the challenges you faced as a young parliamentarian, and how can we improve this trend?
Well, I think first of all, the greatest challenge is getting elected. And I do think that there are quite a lot of countries all around the world that have a pressuring need for electoral reform in order for larger parts of the population to actually have a chance of affecting and influencing their democracy. Democracy is supposed to be for the people, and then we actually need to let people do the governing. I think also there are way more ways in which a lot of democracies could seek to engage their citizens and try to open up the legislature, open up so that more people can have a say. But then, and for me, when I've come in as a young politician, first time I met in Parliament, I was 23 years old. I think the most important thing for me was being treated as a peer and being treated as an equal and being shown that, given the responsibility and shown trust from other parliamentarians in particular. Because, you know, when you're in your early 20s, it's a quite vulnerable time, but also being in a place in which you recognize that, okay, these people don't really look like me. Most people live quite different lives, are in different stages, have different challenges, and often you look to role models who kind of look like yourself. And when there's a lack of such, just trying to be extra inclusive towards those who might come from, who might be minorities in that particular environment, I think is extremely important. And I also think that if we actually want more youth, want more female, want more people of color, if we want more minorities, if we want more members of the LGBTQIA plus community to serve in parliament, because all of such minorities are underrepresented in most democracies, well, then we also need positive action in order to take care of that. It's not going to take care of itself.
Thank you so much. And I mean, trust is, we've heard a lot about trust over the past 2 days as well. I think it's important for young people to feel recognized in spaces where they are trusted and can be trusted, but also that they know that they're going to be in rooms or seats at the tables that they can actually implement change. Now, ladies, like I mentioned, I'm from Global Citizen, and we really believe in the power of music to drive change. We do these massive festivals and experiences across the globe, and I want to know from each one of you, who is the one artist, just one, or musician, that inspires you to take action and gets you moving? So yesterday, in our tracks and in this recap session, we had two guests who mentioned two artists. We had a Beyonce fan and we had an Angelique Kidjo fan, two amazing icons. So I'm going to start with you, Simone, and then you guys let me know.
Angelique Kidjo first. She has really powerful words. And of course, Beyonce, everyone loves her. Everyone loves her.
Yes.
Well, I mean, this is quite stereotypical of me, but I'm a Swiftie, obviously. So, yeah, Taylor Swift. And I think both Beyonce and Taylor Swift are both embarking on large tours. I mean, the entire world has probably listened to Beyonce's newest country album. I think both of them are very good, also role models in the sense that they encourage females to stand up and take a place.
Luckily, I had a few extra seconds to think about it. I'm gonna have to say the artist Kehlani, mostly because they make music for the gays. I am a gay, so I love Kehlani. But I think similarly to Beyonce, I think a lot of their activism outside of music itself, they're very intentional about making their music very joyous and reflective of the times and reflecting of healing and really the embodiment of a feeling and emotion, and music as a vessel for that, and as a human. I think they're a person to look up to about what it looks like to be really engaged and really be in solidarity. And I definitely think they're a really good musical influence and a positive role model for young people.
Great, I love that. Okay, and just my final question for the day, really, and feel free to answer if you want. What is the one thing you would like to see, or the one thing that you'd like to imagine should happen before ICPD 35? Like, if there's one major thing that's top of mind right now as we summarize the last 2 days, what is the one thing you wish could happen?
I want to see a free Gaza. Think that's very. It's a very short answer, but it's extremely urgent. I hope to see that way before ICPD 35. I want to see all the conflicts in Sudan and Congo really be properly addressed and properly covered, properly educated about. I know we can't work from a place of strife and a place of harm, and there's healing that needs to be done. I hope that we can be in a place of implementation and change by the ICPD 30, but we have a lot of steps before we get there. So I want to see peace.
So in Senegal, we recently elected the youngest president in Africa, and now he's in his way to form his government. So my wish before the end, because he will publish it like tonight or tomorrow, my wish is to have a young people as a minister of youth in Senegal. You know, in our countries, our ministers are old people. The minister of youth are your old people. I wish a young woman to be our minister, to be able to work with her, guide her, and not me, and especially invest and implement the youth peace and security in Senegal, because young people there, they work for democracy, they elected their president, and they did their best to not have electoral violence. So they are actors of peace, but they didn't know it. So I really hope that we'll have a leader that will really show them the way, a young people in preference.
So I'm quite concerned of the backlash against women's reproductive rights that one sees around the world right now. So just throwing it out there, I'd like to see that all women around the world have accessibility to abortion, free abortion. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. And I would love for this conversation to continue, but the conversation isn't over. So keep engaging with us on our platforms, on Global Citizen Africa, on UNFPA. And really, you guys are truly a force to be reckoned with. I don't want this to end. However, I strongly encourage all the young people online to continue to engage with us and watch the recap sessions. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, ladies. Thank you. Yes, Captain Free. Thank you. No, it's off. Well, it's on. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was good. That was good. See, it wasn't long. I didn't ask difficult questions.
Record.